Hello, hello. It's SIG Node weekly meeting. It's the last day of January 2023. Welcome, everybody. We have very long agenda today, and we will also want to go through CAPS document. So let's try to fit all agenda items in under 30 minutes because most agenda items CAP related anyway. So it will be a good discussion. So with that, let's get going. Aravin.
Hey, folks. Yeah, so my name is Arvind. I know many people here might not be familiar with my name. I work at Red Hat on OpenShift, mainly on the Windows Node side. I'm here to talk about this KEP about adding a new feature called node log query, which allows you to query for node logs using kubectl. The KEP is quite old. It's a couple of years old. The implementation has been going on for a couple of years. The main reason for the feature was on the Windows side, we run into issues where the kubelet goes to ready, but you're not able to bring up pods. You typically need to look at continuity logs, CNI logs, and kubelet logs. And this feature helps us debug much easier. And we have similar issues on. If you have similar issues on the Linux side, you can use the same feature to do this sort of debugging. But the latest feedback we got from Jordan was he's a little uncomfortable about introducing this feature because they're going to disable the log endpoint in the Kube API server by default. And so his stance is, if this feature does move forward, he wants it to be disabled by default. And if it is enabled, there's a warning, and then puts the cluster in a non-conformant way. So I just wanted to get me and SIG Windows, we wanted to get some feedback from the Node SIG Node folks on how we can move forward with this. Are you folks fine with this sort of feature, with it all being disabled by default? And if yes, we can talk to Jordan about this and move forward.
When you said non-conformant, you meant just this feature would not be included in the conformance test suite.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
At least that's what I understood with Jordan's comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't look at the CAP. Is there some alternative you suggested, with like third-party agents that will do the same in terms of log collection?
Yeah, I'm sure there are alternative ways of doing this. You could have a full-fledged log collector running on the node. However, these are sort of, they're heavy services that you typically end up running. And at least definitely on the Windows side, we don't want the customer to have to do something extra to allow us to debug. We would like to be able to debug these sort of issues right out of the box without the customer having to do anything extra on their side.
So Sergey, the way I think about this is, because I was asking Arvind similar questions yesterday, or I forget last week when we were chatting on this. If I contrast this with Jordan's feedback on the Kube API server log endpoint being disabled, a cluster admin is not necessarily admin on how the control plane is configured or operated in all contexts. Obviously, there are situations where people externalize the control plane, and as a user cluster admin, you in those scenarios, you typically just have root on every worker node in that cluster. So yes, conceptually, you can deploy a pod like FluentD or something to forward logs, which tend to run with higher privileges, to some other log collection endpoint. I think that's great. The scenario that Arvind gave back to me, which I found interesting, was how to help users overcome situations where they are unable to start a pod, right? And that's where I think this node log use case is interesting. If, as a user, you're trying to troubleshoot operational deployment in an environment where the pod can't even start, whether that's your first CNI pod or that's your log forwarding pod. So I can see there being an interest on this. I didn't necessarily see an elevated privilege posture on this, because as cluster admin, I can run privileged processes on nodes generally. So it was really just like a convenience factor to me, which I think is different than what Jordan might have been looking at from Kube API server, but just wanted to give that context, Arvin, from our own probing on this back and forth.
Yeah. Thanks, Derek.
And I could maybe provide a little bit more details. So like on Windows, there's a lot of things that log to either like the event tracing for Windows infrastructure or Windows system events. And this KEP was kind of a way to unify access to node logs. So if you're targeting a Linux node, it'll kind of shell out to journalctl. And if you're going to a Windows node, it'll figure out if you need to use the PowerShell APIs to get the Windows events logs and things like that, and kind of unify it for the user to make it a little bit easier. So there are ways to get all of the logs from nodes, either on Linux or Windows, that do have like, custom logging solutions and all of that. But and also like if a malicious user wants to get the logs, there are probably ways to do that too. But this is really a convenience feature for operators who would like to get logs without having to deploy those and unify that interface, is what we were thinking when the KEP was initially envisioned.
And it can be static pod because static pod is cannot be scheduled as well. So you want to troubleshoot why the static pod hasn't started, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
That is correct.
Mainly like container runtime logs, system logs, like all the Windows infrastructure for starting containers, that sort of thing.
All right. Just looking at the chat, it looks like a member from the EKS team as well is expressing interest. So I don't know if there's folks who want to reflect on this more, maybe we can get a comment on the KEP in the affirmative or negative. I think, Arvin, if you want to summarize today's discussion and get on the KEP for Jordan's feedback, that would be good. But if others could chime in with their concerns or not, I think is probably helpful to unblocking this or getting traction going forward. So, and thanks, Mark, as well.
Yeah, I can summarize on the PR where Jordan has left the comment, and I think I've linked to the PR here. Folks can add to this, and that might help Jordan get more clarity on this.
Yeah. Then the only other things, maybe Arvin, just top of mind that we could make sure are covered in the KEP or have been enumerated. One would be like clarifying who are the intended consumers of this. Like, I don't think we want to have each kubelet be hit for QPS rates to be the main log emitter or advertise centralized log forwarding away from the node itself. So to me, this is like no different than exec or attached traffic flows. And then I do feel that we need the endpoint to be disableable in those environments that do want to disable it. At least speaking for the user base I know I would represent it. The same users who want to disable exec and attach would likely disable this endpoint, but that's not necessarily the majority of all users in the ecosystem. So I think if those from EKS and AKS and similar would see the world similarly, I think that would be also good to see.
Yeah, I think it's important who want to see like these logs, because I mean, being involved in many log systems, like next things that people will ask for is some sort of hiding sensitivity information out of these logs and like some filtering on top of it. And I don't think we want to get into the business of building full-fledged login system out of kubelet.
Yeah, I don't think the intent is to do that either, at least so far, is not to build a full-fledged logging system. But thanks, Derek. I can definitely summarize about what we spoke here. And I have not added the code to actually make this an option to disable it, but I can definitely do that. But I just wanted to get feedback and also get confirmation from Jordan that he's okay with that. So thanks, folks.
Okay, next item is about kubelet changes for retrievable, not retrievable status.
Hi, that's That's my cat. So I would like to give you like heads up and maybe also ask for reviewing the CAP. It's the owner of the CAP is SIG because it's mostly to improve handling of pod failures for jobs, but SIG Node is a participating SIG because we also touched a couple of aspects of how pods are handled and their failures. And now the CAP is in beta, but we found some issues that we want to improve yet in the second iteration of beta before we approach graduation to GA. So this is update, like not the whole CAP, but just the PR that contains the update. And one important thing in this CAP update is that we reviewed the situation. So we give users ability to control how pod failures are handled by configuring pod failure policy. And this pod failure policy can match exit codes or pod and in general pod end state. That includes exit codes or pod conditions. However, we want to match the pod failure policy against the configured pod failure policy against the pod end state only once the pod is in terminal phase. And after the first iteration of beta, this wasn't guaranteed. So we reviewed the situation in which this may not be happen. And there is one case where the pod is pending and terminating and is already scheduled to a node, then it would get stuck in this phase if the pod failure policy is configured. So we want to fix this by modifying kubelet to identify such pods and move them into the, like, evict them, trigger the eviction mechanism to just transition them into the failed phase. So yeah, more details are in the CAP update, the PR, and there is also a POC implementation of this. I don't know, but if there are some questions now, then I am also happy to answer. So
yeah. My only question was a couple of days back when I was reviewing it. Update was written in a little bit cryptic language. So I think I understand all the terms, but at the same time, I'm not sure whether I understand all the terms. So if you can make update a little bit more detailed, like with more explanation and maybe more examples, it will be much easier to review and give feedback. But I mean, in general, I think it's a good direction.
oh, sure. Since the last time I already updated it. So if you, yeah, it would be nice if you could return to this.
Thank you.
I think this has some intersection with the kubelet pod lifecycle refactor that folks discussed with Clayton. So maybe Ryan and David, you guys may want to take a look.
Yep, will do.
Thank you, Mikhail. Paka, do you want to talk about this local storage capacity isolation?
Yes, the PR is approved from storage side for the bug fix, and we have enabled this feature in 25 version, and then revert it. And I'm not sure if there's anything else I need to do to re-promote this feature to beta. Because until now we have no other bugs raising for this feature, and this seems to be the blocking issue for promote it to beta.
Ryan, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we slightly discussed this in the I think last week's meeting or the week before. There's other issues with the feature where a user can go in and change the project ID of the directory and effectively get around quotas. And so there's some discussion around whether we really want to bring this feature to beta. That was an ongoing discussion. We hadn't made a decision about it yet. And so we can certainly get the bug fixes in, but I'm not sure if the feature is ready for beta.
Okay, thanks. Could you provide the discussion meeting link last week, the last week meeting?
Yeah, I think it was last week. We slightly talked about it, and there's.
Okay, I will get back to see what about that. Thanks.
Yeah, where we left it was that we needed to figure out if we wanted to actually take this feature to beta. Is there anyone in your org that is using it with the alpha flag turned on?
Yes, we only used it in some testing environment, and until now we got the bug and no other. Yeah.
Okay, I'll ping you on Slack, Kubernetes Slack, and we can go over the PRs and perhaps get them in. Maybe we can figure out a plan on getting the feature to beta too.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember we've been discussing some limitations of this feature. Maybe, yeah, we're looking for some write-up, like, is it working or not? And if it's working and we can make it work, let's promote it. Otherwise, let's get it deprecated. Okay, thank you, Paka and Ryan. I posted in the notes, we discussed it on January 17th. It's the very first topic and recording is available. Okay, Kevin, are you on the call?
Well, it's actually my PR, so I can answer questions. So that's a simple change, just like passing CDI ID like through the kubelet down to the runtime. So it was reviewed and it's pending like final approval. So please look.
Okay, another one, Kevin again. DRA changes. Yeah, I guess it's another enhancement that we need to review. Atanas, I know that there was a meeting 6 a.m. this morning, 6 a.m. for me. You want to talk about it?
Sure. Yep. So this is the CAP for Container Compute Interface, former Kubelet resource plugin CAP. So we basically opened the PR to the enhancement repo. You can find it attached. So just to give context for new listeners, this is basically an approach where we would like to enable attaching drivers for resource management to pods which require such drivers to get resources allocated. So in terms of status, we have now initial CAP kind of summary done. So most probably our CAP form is filled out by 90%. We are gathering feedback from the community and also questions and trying to cover that through the CAP. The review is ongoing. There were some opens raised in the community meeting what we had this morning. So one was if we can add some description, what happens if kubelet restarts to describe this scenario, just to illustrate it better. Then there was an open, we were describing a lot about the architecture for alpha phase. There was open and request if we can give it a little bit better overview long term, what are the expected architectural changes for beta and graduation to GA. And there was an ask to illustrate the failure and corner cases a little bit better. So we had a troubleshooting kind of information provided in the CAP, but most probably we need to go a little bit in details with some examples how we plan to handle failing cases when a plugin fails, or basically a driver fails, or how you can deploy other pods, how you can maintain the cluster up and running if there are failures on plugin side. Yeah, thank you. That's for me.
Since we are on this topic, I think I mean I reviewed it, and it's a change from like what we discussed before New Year. So it's a little bit new approach with pod being carrying this like policy information. I would we need to decide who will be reviewers and approvers of this cap. I think during the meeting you said that it was reviewed by some people.
Yeah, the changes were a little bit driven by some of the feedback in the community meeting. Like we had feedback that we should think about bootstrapping and fail safety. And one of the issues is if you're starting the Kubernetes cluster and something happens with your plugin, if you're going completely through a driver to handle the whole allocation process, what do you do then? So that's why we thought it's good basically to apply the drivers only to pods which really need the drivers. And for that, we will need some sort of association technique similar to resource classes, what you see in the array or another option in pod spec. And this will allow us to identify pods which require the drivers. And basically, we can always start the cluster with a normal CPU manager. And if the driver is required, basically the pod which is to be scheduled will check if there will be a check if the driver is running. And if driver is not accessible, you will get a failure. So with that, we are trying to deal with basically some of the corner cases and failing scenarios and the bootstrapping issues.
Okay, I think it's a big change comparing to what it was before, and I just want to set the expectations that for me at least, it blows my mind trying to fit like how this cap will fit into longer term directions for Kubernetes, and at the same time whether there is any immediate application that it will have, like with the reliability and such. So for me personally, it will be hard. And also, what user stories use cases we will solve today, and which will maybe
use cases. So that also one argument for this kind of change of direction a little bit is, let's say we are coming from the argument that 90% of the use cases, what you have today, they are covered by standard components. You have CPU manager, memory manager, topology manager. You don't want to lose them. You don't want to basically your standard pods not to be running. So the cases where you need plugins are specialization cases. So those are concrete examples where you need certain specialization on the driver side. They are more or less custom scenarios or specialization scenarios. That's why this kind of identifying which group of pods do need that. So, and then the standard cases you still cover through standard path in Kubernetes.
Part of these changes are to address Derek's concern about bootstrapping and who owns what and how all that process works. So for the main cases, right, those should stay within kubelet proper. But for all the specialty cases that we need and others, I'm sure our customers.
So yeah,
This is to
that
keep
that
from
was
pushing it into the main tree. We don't want to keep putting specialty use cases into topology manager, into CPU manager. Rather, it's better to provide a way where the community doesn't have to support it.
yeah. So basically, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Just to summarize it, we when we need a specialization, we want to mark the pods, we are thinking that users would like to have a way to mark the pods, which will require some specialization in terms of resource management, and then you apply the drivers. In many cases, you are fine with standards CPU management kind of concepts inside Kubernetes, 90% of the cases.
Yeah, I understand that, and what I'm trying to say is, since I don't know all the advanced cases, I don't know whether this will cover all the cases and
Right.
what will lose out of coverage. And again, I also only saying that because to set expectations that there will be a lot of questions, and
Sure.
be ready to answer questions before.
Yeah, we have some examples for advanced cases. So they are not majority of the cases, but there are such cases.
We also got a lot of constructive feedback, so we have some fleshing out to do, and we're aware of that, and we're also aware that you're trying to set expectations. So we'll continue to work for it.
Thank you. Derek, do you want to comment on this?
No, I just I would echo those who wanted a better time for the meeting. I also wasn't able to be there this morning, and apologize, but was not a great time for me either. But I'll look to catch up on the latest discussions.
Yeah, I'm happy to host another meeting at another time. This just had the most people. It's just no time is good for everybody.
Yeah, maybe we need to do like a US friendly meeting at least once if you want to expedite reviews. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next topic is Claudio. Registration.
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it short. So I proposed a change like 2 months ago in regards to how the kubelet registers plugins, and especially re-registers plugins. I don't know if you remember, but basically currently the kubelet plugin registration is based on timestamps. Basically, that's how the reconciler is going to notice there's a plugin that has to be re-registered. So based on the timestamp, it will then detect whatever plugin has to be re-registered. But there are a couple of issues with this implementation on Windows. That's mainly due to the fact that time granularity on Windows, it's a lot less fine-grained. So, for example, if you do 2 consecutive time.now calls on Windows, you will most probably get the same timestamp. It will only get updated in at most 15 milliseconds or so. So that is causing a couple of issues on Windows, and a couple of unit tests to also fail on Windows. So currently, the pull request tries to add a UID instead of a timestamp. So whenever a UID is seen as being different, that means that the plugin has to be re-registered instead of relying on the timestamp. So my question is if there are any concerns regarding this update or not, because I am interested in hearing out if there are any issues so I can correct them as soon as possible. Thoughts, opinions? Yeah.
So
For
just so this UUID, is it something you store in Kubernetes, and does it require any changes how people approach plugins? Like, do they need to change anything, or it's all automatic?
it is automatic in the sense that there is a desired state of world which gets updated with a new plugin. So all the calls to register new plugins are basically going to get added to the desired state of world, in which case the reconciler will then iterate over the list of plugins that the desired state of world has and checks against the actual state of world. If detects a plugin which doesn't have a matching current at the moment in Kubernetes, if it doesn't have a matching timestamp, then it will update it and re-register it. So basically, my pull request updates the check from checking the timestamp to checking a UID. The mechanism stays the same. Nothing changes when it comes to the APIs themselves. Basically, when a new plugin is getting registered in the desired set of world, a new UID is generated instead of recording a new time.now timestamp.
Got it.
That's pretty much the difference.
Yeah, I was looking at the code delta. You actually removed the older API. Is that necessary, or do you think maybe just provide the additional UID?
Did I remove what?
You removed an API. Plugin exists with correct timestamp.
Oh,
Am I looking at the right one?
Okay, yeah, that's a rename basically, yeah.
Which is a
Because
removal of the public API, isn't it?
Sure, I can change the name back, but technically it won't be a correct name since it's not going to check.
No, I don't mean remove it. Would it be fair to keep both for, for at least for some time period?
Okay, that's fair. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. I can have them both then.
Okay. I see I assigned it at some point to myself for review. I will try to find time. If anybody else interested, please join in.
Hey, I will join.
Great, thanks.
Hey, it's a party.
Then I'll add the plugin exists with correct timestamp as well. So we'll have both for a while. But basically the reconciler at this when my pull request is going to use the plugin exists with the correct UID, since that's going to check whatever a new plugin has to be re-added.
Okay, thank you. If there is no more questions here, Vinay, do you want to talk about in-place pod vertical scaling?
Yeah, hi. So two things. One is, can we get this cap officially tracked for 127? I think Tim pointed out, asked this question, and I noticed that it's not in the tracking list. Mark, are you able to do this, or do you need something from? I don't know.
I can edit. Yeah.
We have Derek and Don here, and I hope that
I can do it. I was hoping, Vinay, that we could actually get this merged this week. Have you caught up with Tim? I know I was out last week, but
I think first question is about enhancement to be tracked for this release.
Yeah, we can do that. I just want to get past the next practical problem, which was, did we have Tim ready to merge?
Yeah. Tim prefers to merge the whole thing. It was my idea to merge the API first and then merge the implementation later, just in case. And that was like early January when things were quiet. I saw that there was not much activity, and it's easier to merge that. And if there is anything going on, the API breaks something, then we can roll back just the API. But Tim kind of brought up the point that if we do merge and then there are other PRs that pick up the API changes and then build on top of it, unwinding it will be really hard. So he prefers to merge the whole thing. And I don't have a strong opinion. The main reason I wanted two different merges was two different PRs merge was that it's easier for someone looking back for posterity that, okay, this is the API changes. It's one set of in this PR, and then this is the implementation. But I guess anybody looking at it will have to probably go through both anyways. It doesn't make a huge difference. Plus, I could bring the tests online while the API was merged, but that's no big deal. We'll just iterate on it quickly and get it merged. So, did you have any concerns with Tim's objections to merging the API only?
No, I just want to unblock this. So like if I'm around this week, if Tim's around this week, let's get this done.
Okay, so I will. I've been sick for the past few days, but today evening I'll rebase. I don't think it needs rebase at this point, but it's a good idea to rebase it once before we hit the approve. What do we need? We need your approval is already there. We need LGTM and approval from Tim and you, right? Is that what we
like
need?
if I need to reapprove, I think that's fine. I just know you won't be able to get merged unless an API approver had also tagged. So you'll need Tim.
Yeah. Okay. So let me. I don't see any conflicts at this point, but I do prefer to do one rebase before hitting the approve merge, just to have one more. It's been almost a week since the last rebase, and there was a unit test break that happened because of some new things that came in, and I added it. I made a change to fix that, but that's about it. Yeah, Golang CLI lint, that was the issue. What do you prefer? Should we just wing it and hit approve today and see if it goes through?
Yeah, today. I mean, if you're ill and you're not feeling well, then tomorrow. But just or when you do feel well, right? But if you just want to ping me and Tim again, and we can say, "Are we good?" Hit the button. Let's do it. I just I want to let you know I'm around here this week to support you.
Okay, let me after this meeting, I'll just ping you. We have that Slack thread going, so I'll just update on that. Let me take a quick look at if there is any major potential conflicts that are coming. I'll just pull a quick rebase and see what happens. So we'll go with just merging the whole thing at this point, and I'll close the API PR.
Sounds good.
Okay. Does that sound good?
Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah.
No, do you wanna,
I'm very worried it'll break. I'm very worried that it'll break things. But this is a good time to do it. We have 6 weeks, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no worries. No, do you want to go through? Yeah, caps list. Perfect. Thank you. No, if you're trying to speak, you are muted.
So apparently my mic goes mute when I share the screen. I can either share or I can talk. So I can do one.
Yeah. Oh, doclink is not here. Can you just send me doclink in chat really quick?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. I know there is a button. Somebody told me about the button that fixes it, but I cannot remember it. I wouldn't be able to remember it on the fly. So. Can you see it?
Yep. So the first one, we just discussed this earlier in the call, right? Like it needs to be fleshed out and needs reviews.
Do we need to put reviewers and approvers here?
Yeah, Marlo, I don't know, do you guys have folks identified that can help?
Yeah, we have several people that can help.
Okay.
If you give
that's
us
why
the PRs, we'll distribute them.
Okay.
To the team.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So the limit on parallel image pool, I think it has LGTMs. It needs a final approval. So Don or Derek, you will have to make a pass for approval.
Okay.
I will do it today.
Okay.
Thanks.
So-
So actually, that one is waiting for a PRR review. I think Don, you have approved the cap already, so it's actually waiting for a PRR review.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ewan. So then next one, I think we just discussed both of them, right? Like one is waiting on approval for the CRI. Don is going to take that. And the other one needs review. So yeah, we can continue reviewing and approving that one. The fine-grained supplemental groups control. So I'm reviewing it. I think it's getting close. There's some discussion around the API. So if folks have some thoughts, take a look, and we can close it out. So basically, I think maybe I can just bring it up here. So he is proposing an API where enum is representing two states of a Boolean. So what is our stance there? Should it be a Boolean or it should be like two different items in an enum?
I thought we were always trying to avoid use of Booleans and API conventions.
Okay.
Favor of enums.
Another question would be, is it nullable?
Yeah, so this is like either you ignore the groups in your pod image or you respect them. Currently we are respecting them. And then there are like two enum states, ignore or respect. I think it's okay for this one because we can't imagine a third state, but a case where there is a third option, then it becomes tricky if we have to only pick like one of the items in the enum. And more than one are feasible.
Typically, it's nullable for the case of mutation webhooks. If you want to understand whether it was set by user or not, you may want to do it nullable of sort.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, folks. I'll continue the review there. That in mind. So the next one is topology manager graduation to GA. I think it's waiting for approval. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Derek was out, so I volunteer myself to take a look. So I halfway through. The only challenge for me it is because the previous stage, beta stage, is long time ago. So the format is totally changed. The strategy, please correct me. So that's why I have to figure out what's the previous one because a lot of format changes, a lot of diffs. So this is why process a little bit slow. So Derek, since you have background, if you want to take over, I'm okay. Or if you are too busy, so I can finish the rest.
I can pick it up. Thanks for trying to take a look at it while I was out.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much like the changes I involved that I made are related to the formatting. So it's just, yeah.
Right. So the next one, Swati, the kubelet pod resources to GA. What's pending on that one?
I believe Francesco was driving that. He noticed something related to Windows that I believe he's here. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So basically, during the there was a bit of missing bits in the state. So for example, we cannot just remove the GA, lock the feature gate to GA. We need to solve a Windows bug, a bug manifesting itself only on Windows, actually. So I asked on SIG Arch, the suggestion was to move back to implementable, do the changes, and then go back to the final stage, to the implemented stage. So I did the part, I did the paperwork. I had to update the template, much like Swati did for PRR questionnaire. I think the PRR people will have some comments about an item which probably slept to the cracks about DOS prevention. Long story short, please, if you can fix the labels, please do. Thank you. And I totally want to do that in 27, but the scope is a bit increasing. So let's see. I totally do want to work on that on 27, but I won't be surprised if it slips. Thanks.
Right. Thanks, Francesco. So the next one doesn't have a link, but I know like Sasha has a PR open, so I'll get a link here, and I think it needs a final approval. So I'll either poke Don or Derek for that one. So it's for graduating downward API. In place updates, we just covered that. Split STD out. Can you click through that one? I don't think we have an update on that. So yeah, we may need someone to pick it up if there's still interest in driving this forward. But right now, the original author isn't around.
Yeah, I remember implementation was like in a very minor change, like feedback items to address. I'm surprised it's not moving forward.
Okay, add app armor support. I think there was an update to the KEP, so it needs review and approval. So in the review board, I thought I saw a PR to update the KEP. Maybe we can link it back here.
Okay, maybe you can do it offline.
Yeah. Okay. So status host IP is added for pod. This should be mainly SIG networking, right?
It's related to us because it's what will be returned from CRI, right? But I think API change was approved for this at least. Yeah, target to it's merged.
Merged, okay.
Just need to make sure that you have all the proper labels and.
The next one, Mike, sub-second granular proofs.
I think pretty much where we got to it was the knowledge that, yeah, when you run more probes, you're probably going to use more, system resources. We wanted to wait for the plug event, APIs to be written so we could have better performance analysis, in this space. I think it's probably ready. We just have to decide, is this something we want to do at this point in time or not? I'm ready to rebase it or whatnot and get it through. I see Tony Awija had done some more detailed analysis on it. There's some additional comments added 2 weeks back.
Yeah, we found a nasty bug with regular probes when you exhaust all the sockets on the host, even with regular pods and with regular like with existing pod limits and container limits, including sub-second. Maybe refactoring will be needed and redesign with long-running connections, stuff like that. Maybe it will be more beneficial or easier to justify.
It can, yeah. I mean, it's really for me, it's a question of whether you're going to begin doing proper tuning, you can actually use up more resources if your cycle time is only on the second range, right? You can hold resources for a half a second, for example, on average, that you didn't need to hold because your probe cycle time should have been at 1.5 seconds, not 2, right? That just saying, there's some improvements to performance that we can do here as well. But yes, it could be abused. So I'm for it. It helps our fast solutions. But we need a reviewer. Okay.
Yeah, I think if we can address this section like scalability and possible reliability, that I mean, it needs to be addressed somehow.
Yeah, Mike, if you updated poke me, I think I'd made a pass earlier, so I can make another pass.
Okay. Yeah, it does improve the test buckets that are there as well. This KEP, it doesn't add a whole lot of end-to-end buckets, but yeah, we can do that as well if we need to.
Good. So again, next one should be dropped in
Yeah,
favor of sidecar.
This is closed, but we have sidecars, and we just need to put it in the proper milestone. And I started a new issue instead of reusing the old one because if you don't own the issue, like it's hard to do all the tracking properly.
Yeah, I made a pass. I'll make another pass and try to close on it this week. And other folks, if they want to take a look at it. QoS class resources. I know Marcus pinged me. I have to review. I would definitely appreciate other folks reviewing it as well, because I'm not sure whether we agreed on the API changes being proposed. Like Marcus, you can correct me, but now it includes API like pod changes, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, I changed the kind of scope of the kind of first implementation phase based on the kind of mixed feedback that we got, but now the kind of annotation-based UX was dropped there and then go directly to kind of Kubernetes API changes. So you're correct. So there is no really consensus on the API changes and not much feedback either. So yeah, please take a look if you're interested. So yeah, you're correct on the status.
We only have 2 minutes left. I'm just trying to understand how many more we have.
So I think we'll definitely need to continue next week, but I think maybe like we can try to asynchronously go through KEPs. And like folks, if you have something which is close, please poke folks for reviews and approvals. I know at least a couple more which are close. I think the SecComp graduation and another one that's on Ryan's plate, but even the PR is ready for that one.
Okay. So and PR freeze is this Friday, I think. So if you want to go through PR review, like make sure that you. By the way, Derek and Don, we need to make sure that our KEPs are in proper milestone. Otherwise, PR reviewers will not pick it up, and then they will not review it. So that's extra work that needs to happen. So maybe we can synchronize on Slack on that.
I remember last week I did fix the bunch, but maybe some things missed or messed up. Yeah, I can go over one more time this week. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, let me find the App Armor KEP. Also, it's already looks good, I believe. And sorry, earlier people asked because I was distracted. So, but the implementation, I'm not sure, and because I haven't got the reply yet. Is they do have the time to finish implementation or not? Yeah.
Okay. With that, I suggest close the meeting. If there are any last comments, please speak up. Otherwise, we always open on Slack and other ways of communication. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye now.
Bye.